today we are chatting about 3 mistakes that newbie content creators make and how to avoid them. We might throw in some bonus ones in there, maybe. But Carly is the queen of this. When I think of content creators, I remember she was throwing around that phrase even before. I was like, what are you talking about? Is that really your job? And she has built out her brand and her personal brand and to help build other brands and their content too. So I'm so glad that I get to pick your brain and that we get to share it with the world. Thank you so much for being generous with us in that way.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. We go way back, you and I, to San Francisco, our San Francisco days, creating together. Praise was doing the girl boss hustle, the entrepreneur lifestyle before I even jumped into that. I started about 3.5 years ago full time, and Praise would come to my workplace. I was working at Tilt at the time, and she's like, Carly, you need to do your own thing. And it just seemed so terrifying at the time. And you were really my biggest advocate and cheerleader besides my husband to take this leap of faith. And so I feel so grateful to have learned from you. You really paved the way for me of what that could look like. And then now to be joining you in a different realm doing it also.
I love it. The world will never be the same. I'm so glad you stepped out. You shined your light. The world is better for it. For all of you who also don't know, Carly and I just have a lot of fun together when we're looking back on some pictures we've had together. We've done a ton of photo shoots. We've traveled the world together too, and we will again one day soon.
We will. Guatemala was a highlight. I like to call you one of my Guatemamas. So can't wait to go back when we're all able to travel more.
Yeah, and maybe with like little babe in hand too.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Okay, well, let's dive right in too. So I know a lot of these mistakes I know I made when I first started being strategic about my business being online. But what is one huge mistake that people make?
Yeah, it was hard to kind of distill it down when you asked me to do this, but I think one of the ones that I get asked a lot is like, how do I avoid having imposter syndrome, or like I'm so burnt out when I'm just scrolling through the feed, like I feel like I don't have any value. How do I show up? What do I post? I feel so jaded and not creative, especially during these times. I know a lot of us can feel stifled, but I think too often the mistake that we make is that we consume before we create. So how many of you, I know I fall victim to this, just your alarm goes off, you roll over in the bed and you just start scrolling. And then it does something crazy to your brain where, like there's like a lack of motivation, a lack of inspiration, a lack of creativity. And then that's how you start your day. That sets the tone. And so I found for me, like when I actually create before I consume, when I put my ideas to paper, or when I just, walk outside with my lens, with my camera, whether it's my phone or my DSLR, and, I really try to create first and come from that place before I consume, then my ideas are so much more like up-leveled and innovative, and I feel so much more like refreshed. And sometimes too, like, I think there's the trap of just going down that Instagram rabbit hole and comparing ourselves. The comparison game is really real. So sometimes for me, that looks like jumping to other channels like Pinterest, or I love like Sprout Social's blog, Planoly's blog. They're really great resources that we can that can generate more creative juices before we kind of continue to consume in that place that we're trying to create, which often is Instagram.
Totally. I get you. I feel like we have to treat ourselves, even if you don't identify as a creative, like treat yourself as like this creative gift to the world, and you're going to ruin some of that creativity by exposing yourself to things that drain you from it. So instead, fill yourself up first, create, and then if it adds value to your life, you can scroll and consume, but only if it adds value. I think that is so good and so helpful, because I feel as if imposter syndrome, we feel like we're so alone in it, but everybody feels that.
Everyone feels that. And we all have value to add. I mean, when we believe that lie that we don't have value to add, I think that's the downward spiral, And so it's thinking about, what do I have? What are the conversations I'm having with girlfriends or my partner? How am I adding value and showing up? And then how can that translate to these social channels? So mistake number one, consuming before we create. Let's try to turn it around so that like what we're creating and producing too, it doesn't just feel like it's the same old recycled stuff that we're seeing that we're also not inspired by.
Totally. But what's so good, and I think you do a great job of this too, Also, shout outs when Carly was first starting out. She actually helped me a lot with my Instagram, and she taught me so much about like creating with intention and to make sure it's working and that the value that we're creating is landing well with our people. And we do that a lot through data. So can you tell us about that mistake about data that newbies often make?
Yeah, definitely. I think mistake number two is that we're not digging into the data. A lot of times we're operating from this like only emotional place or our gut or what we think might work, what we think people might want to see or hear. And we're not actually taking a look at all of the amazing, robust tools that Instagram or other social platforms give us to dig into the data and use those like data-driven insights to inform the type of creative that we can create going forward. So that's a huge one I find. Like I also run for those of you that don't know, a creative agency called Camp Digital. And for all of our clients, like that's a huge value add that we have, is that we really operate from like a data-driven place first, and then like sort of layer in the creative piece to that. But for all of you out there, I don't know if you guys are set up as business accounts or, you know, creator accounts or personal accounts. I highly recommend, if you are, you know, a brand or a business, that you utilize the business and brand account feature that Instagram has, because you can get so much data, so many insights. I mean, here's a little tip for you guys, a little piece of homework. What are your top, you know, 3 highest performing posts in the last 30 days? Can you answer that? Like, can you point to these are definitely the ones? Because once you start to dig into the data, you know, within the insights, if you tap the upper right and you go to insights, you can actually search by, these are my top posts by saves, by likes, by impressions, by comments, like all of those different things we can filter. We can get down to the data and see what those are. And then you can say, hey, oh, people love when I post a picture of, you know, my house. Maybe I should do more interior content. They love when I add value giving social media tips. Maybe I should build out more of that. You know, what are those trends, and what is the data saying to inform the categories of content that you create going forward?
That's so good. And I feel as if, too, looking to the data will help a lot of that imposter syndrome, too, because I feel oftentimes there's a trap like, I don't have as many followers as X. But then if you actually look at like, wait, but a lot of people really like this. And it's like the percentage of people that like this is actually outperforming the percentage of this too. And so don't make assumptions. Go back to the data. Go back to those hard facts.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and to that point, you may have 20 likes or 50 likes on a photo, right? But when you dig into that data, you may see the impressions or the reach is 500 or 1,000. It may be reaching a lot of people, but people may not be double tapping or leaving a comment because of another reason that we'll jump into later. But you're right, that data can be really validating and really encouraging.
Right. And I think what's so good, and you said this earlier on, is just like being so convicted about like the value that you're providing. I know it. There's 3 things I live by is that if you're creating content, make it entertaining, educational, or inspirational.
That's
And
right.
so if it
Always.
fulfills those things, you're truly providing data. But another mistake is like not giving yourself the best, um, giving yourself all the roads to get that value out there. And that's often the third mistake newbies make. Isn't that right?
That's right. That's right. The third biggest mistake that I see people making is limiting your reach. This one gets me so fired up.
Get on fire,
And
sister.
the biggest way you can limit your reach is to not use any hashtags or to not use the right hashtags. And as soon as you use the right hashtags, your reach, I guarantee you, will expand. I tried this on my husband last week. He's like, why aren't people seeing, or why are only X amount of people seeing my posts? Why aren't new people discovering me? Why are we not gaining new followers? Why, you know, aren't people seeing these posts about my music? He's an artist. He just released
An
some.
amazing artist.
So you can check him out on
Shout out.
Spotify. Alan Mask. But we did a little A/B test just with him, and I did some hashtag homework, which I want all of you to do too, which we'll dive into. And once we applied those hashtags, we extended his reach. So he was limiting his reach by forgetting or not using or not taking the time to do the hashtag homework and applying the right hashtags to every post. You know, I think of hashtags as like SEO gold. For those in the marketing world, SEO, search engine optimization, it's the keywords that we attach to different pieces of content online so that when you go to Google, then you appear towards the top of that search, right? And so same with Instagram. Hashtags are like SEO gold or nuggets for our content. And what we need to do is we need to always use up to 30, which I'm a big advocate of 30, and the data is a big advocate of 30. But hey, I'll take, if you start with 10 or 20, I'll take that over 0 any day. But you can work your way to 30. And what we want to do is we want to find hashtags that are small, medium, and large. And what that specifically means is hashtags that are 10K uses all the way up to 500K uses. That's like the golden range that you want to do your hashtag homework around. So when you type in a hashtag on Instagram, you can actually see, okay, hashtag Santa Barbara, maybe that was used 1.5 million times, but maybe hashtag Santa Barbara blogger or Santa Barbara social media agency was used far less, right? And so we need to sit down and we need to identify what are the categories of content for my brand or business and create different hashtag lists for those. Because a picture of a coffee and a picture of, you know, me sitting here teaching a social media class and a picture of me traveling, those shouldn't have the same hashtags. You should really mix it up based on the people you're trying to attract for that piece of content. So just to kind of recap, that big mistake is limiting your reach by forgetting hashtags, and you always want to use as many as you can, up to 30, small, medium, and large. That range is 10K to 500K uses, and you'll be able to see very quickly with those insights. You can literally see how many people found your post from hashtags alone. Last week, I think I had a total, reach of 25,000, impressions, and 17,000 of them were because of hashtags. So imagine like how much more elevated my engagement rate was just because I was using those right hashtags.
Carly, you always blow my mind. I haven't heard the strategy of like small, medium, and large, but that makes sense. Just to mix it up within those 30 hashtags that we can use.
Yeah, and it's to cast a wide net, because if you're using these hashtags like hashtag love, hashtag life, like whatever it may be, those are in the multi-millions, you're not going to be discovered. And you truly need to be thinking like, Instagram is like a search engine. What is someone going to be typing in to ideally find you? And then start to create those lists. One last little pro tip is that you don't want to use the same list of hashtags or the same hashtags within 48 hours. So Instagram will actually,
Algorithm.
The algorithm, at least that's the last time I checked, unless they mixed it up this morning. So that's why you want to have those separate hashtag lists as well. And in theory, you shouldn't be posting that, same type of picture every time. You should be having a content variety and mix. So make sure you're changing it up within the 48 hours as well.
I'm about to slap the girl who helps right now. Yo, make sure that we didn't use these things yesterday and today. Yes, follow Carly's Instagram, and then you can look at our Instagram as someone in process applying these principles. But that makes so much sense, because you do want to mix it up of how people find you and how specifically people find you. And one of my favorite quotes is the riches are in the niches, right? And I think that's another big thing too, is trying to be so everybody, like trying to be
like everything to everyone.
Everything to everyone, yes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that would be mistake number 4, which we're going to give you two bonuses here. I know we just went through the top 3, but thanks for hanging in there with us, everyone. We want to add a little bit more value to you right now. So I think a lot of times we try to be everything to everyone. We try to appeal to everyone, make everyone happy. And this could just be in your personal life. It doesn't even have to be just on Instagram that we're talking about. But the stronger and clearer that your vision can be for yourself and what you stand for and who you're trying to attract and what kind of content you're trying to produce, the more specific of an audience and the right audience and people you're going to draw in, right? And so I think a lot of times when people are everything to everyone, you can tell that, in their content as well, doesn't have much direction. Maybe their bio is really bare because they don't even have like information about who they are, what they stand for, or how you can contact them, or, the market they live in and where they're trying to attract someone. So I think a big mistake is trying to be everything to everyone. And one little pro tip that I'll give you is that the most effective real estate within your bio that you can kind of hone in on who you want to attract is that bold kind of header at the top where it has your name generally. So a lot of times it will say like praise, you know, and then it could say where you live, or it could say praise photographer, praise content creator. You can get really creative with that real estate, and that's going to be the area that Instagram weighs the most in terms of search. So I used to always search for Santa Barbara, and then my one friend would come up, and I'm like, why does he come up every time I search for Santa Barbara? And it was because he had Santa Barbara in that bold area at the top, which gave it more weight and sort of like that SEO prioritization within Instagram search. So I think that you can hone in on who you are within your bio, starting there, and who you're wanting to attract, whether that be indicating your location, some of your mission statement and core values as well.
Well, that's so good. And I love that you said, P.S. This applies to life. Yes, like don't try to please everyone. My own struggle is people pleasing to the max. And I'm like, no, actually, if I'm gonna change the world to the world I want it to be, I'm gonna disappoint some people, and I hope to disappoint some people.
That's right. That's right. Because you want to repel the people that just aren't your people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and attract the tribe that is yours.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to get specific, and I love what you just said. Yes. Yes, and.
Yes, and attract and repel. Attract and repel. Another big thing, and I know a lot of people in my community, and when I was first starting out, I just didn't do this well. Like I would be so heartfelt in creating these things, and I'll put it out into the world, and then people didn't even know what to do with it. Like they read it and they liked it, but I didn't ask anything from them.
Yes, and that is mistake number 5.
Yes.
Mistake number 5, which is your second bonus tip, is not including a strong or clear CTA, which simply is call to action, okay? A call to action is when we literally ask someone to do something. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, but we have to specifically ask people, double tap this, you know, bookmark this, tap that paper airplane below, mention 3 people who, tag 3 friends who, you know, leave a comment below. I mean, I don't know about you all, but when someone puts that like within their caption and it's very clear, I find myself taking that action. You know, I want to help them out. I want to support them. I want to give them some love, but people may not think it's important. It may not even occur to them if you don't ask them. And so, you know, some marketers out there are of the mindset that every single post should have one really clear, strong call to action. Now you can try it out with a few at first and see, again, with the data, how it's working for you or not. But think about some clever calls to action. Think about too, like, what are you trying to achieve with this piece of content? What is the action that you want someone to take? And like, how will that then define success for you for that? One of my favorite ones, which I called out earlier in this section, is bookmark this or save this. When you literally tell someone to bookmark this, here's 3 tips that I have for social media, or save this. These are my 5 favorite cafes to go to in Antigua, Guatemala. People will save it. People will bookmark it. And you know what? That is one of the strongest signals. There's like over 200 signals that go into the Instagram algorithm that tells Instagram that this is valuable content, which will then mean it's prioritized in the feed. So when I look at some of my most liked posts with most impressions, for example, they're also the ones that were the most bookmarked. So that's a really easy, actionable one for you to do, and kind of like a fun way to start thinking about creating content. You can create lists. You can create things that add value to people in that way too.
I love me a good list. I think I have several at Carly Mask saved on my Instagram account. Like, next time I visit Carly, I want to go to these 5 cafes. So, queen, that is such a clear, good call to action. I didn't realize that too in the algorithm that'll bump us up. You're giving us hacks for this life, sister. I'm so into it.
That's right. And next time we'll dive into what you do with all of those saved and bookmarked pieces of content. Where do they go? How can you organize them? How can you use them to your advantage? So that'll be coming up in our next little Instagram live.
How to Marie Kondo your Instagram when you log in. Love it. Love it.
That's right.
We should practice what we preach and give people call to action for our IG live. So tell us, where can people find you and all this wisdom you ooze out?
Yes, so you can hop over to @Carly Mask, CarlyMask, as you can see there on the screen. And just send me a DM. Send me what you thought about this, or if you had any feedback about this today, if you had any additional questions that we couldn't get to or answer. I know that we were going to just do 15 minutes, but time flies, you know, when you're diving into all this fun stuff. So thanks for hanging out with us today. And you can also pop over to my website, carlymask.com. At the very bottom, you can sign up for my newsletter, and we'll be sharing some updates very soon about some upcoming workshops and other educational materials.